and serves as Vice President for a network of empowered women who is putting on this gathering upon today. So without further ado, let us give a hand to Pastor Lester Barrie.
One of my favorite songs of 1985 was that song that was put together by those superstar entertainers, We Are the World. I suppose I liked it so much because it suggested that this world can and should be saved, not only by people in powerful positions and for their political reasons, but by and for the average everyday person like yourself and mine. There is no difficulty that enough of us can't conquer. There's no wall that enough of us can't throw down. There's no disease that enough of us can't heal. It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble. If enough of us get together and our minds are made up, we can resolve it all. If we can only remember that, we'd be the happiest and most powerful people in the world. If we can remember it, I'm sure this is what the author had in mind when he wrote this poem and entitled it Freedom's Plow. He wants us to remember it because we've seen it all before. Freedom's Plow by Langston Hughes. When a man starts out with nothing, when a man starts out with his hands empty but clean, when a man starts out to build the world, he starts first with himself and the faith that is in his heart, the strength there and the will there to build. Now first in the heart there's a dream. The mind starts seeking away. His eyes look out onto the world, onto the great wooded land, onto the rich soils of the world, onto the rivers of the world. Now the eyes see materials there for building, but it sees the difficulties too, and the obstacles. The hand seeks tools to cut the wood, to till the soil, and to harness the great powers of the water. But then the hand seeks other hands to help, a community of hands to help. And thus this dream becomes not one man's dream alone, but a community dream. It's not my dream alone, but it's our dream. It's not my world alone, but it's your world and my world, belonging to all the hands that build. It was a long time ago, but not so long ago, ships came from across the sea, bringing pilgrims and prayer makers, adventurers and beauty seekers, free men and indentured servants, slave men and slave masters, all new to a new world. Bringing men and dreams and women and dreams in little bands together, hearts reaching out to heart, hands reaching out to hands. And together, they began to build our land. Now some were free hands seeking a greater freedom, while others were indentured hands hoping to find their freedom, while others were slave hands guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom. But the word was always there. Freedom. Down into the earth went the plow and the free hands and the slave hands and indentured hands and adventurous hands. Turning the rich soil went the plow that planted and harvested the food that fed and the cotton that clothed America. Clang against the trees went the axe that hewed and shaped the rooftops. Splash into the rivers and the seas went the boatholes that moved and transported. Crack went the whips that drove the horses across the plains. Free hands and slave hands, indentured hands, adventurous hands, white hands and black hands held the plow, axe, hammer handles, launched the boats and whipped the horses that fed and housed and moved. And thus together through labor, labor. Out of labor came the villages and the towns that grew to cities. Out of labor came the factories and the foundries and the railroads. Out of labor came the marts and markets, the shops and stores, the mighty produce molded, manufactured, piled in warehouses and shipped the wide world over. Out of labor came the strength, will, and way to build. Now it's me here and you there. Now it's Manhattan, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, Boston, El Paso. Now it's the USA. A long time ago, but not so long ago, a man said, all men are created equally, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. His name was Jefferson. Now there were slaves then, but in their hearts the slaves believed him too. And they silently took for granted that what he said was also meant for them. It was a long time ago, but not so long ago, that Lincoln said, "No man is good enough to govern another without that other man's consent." Now, there were slaves then too, but in their hearts the slaves knew that what he said must be meant for every human being, else it had no meaning for anyone at all. And then a man said, "It's better to die free than to live as slaves." Now, he was a colored man who had been a slave but had run away to freedom. And the slaves knew that what Frederick Douglass said was true. Now, with John Brown at Harper's Ferry, Negroes died, and John Brown was hung before the Civil War days were even dark, and no one knew for sure when freedom would triumph, or if it would at all. Still others knew it had to triumph. In those dark days of slavery, guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom, the slaves made up a song. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. And that song meant just what it said. Hold on. Freedom will come. And out of war it came. Bloody and terrible, but it came. And some there were, as always, who doubted that the war would end right, or that the slaves would be free, or that the Union would stand. But we know now how it all came out. Yes, out of the darkest days for a people and a nation, we know how it all came out. You see, there was a light when the battle cloud rolled away, and there was this great wooded land, and men united as a nation. The poet said it was a promise, but the people said it was a promise that will come true. The people don't always say things out loud, nor do they write them down on paper. No, the people sometimes hold in great thoughts in their deepest hearts, and sometimes only blunderingly express them. They haltingly, stumblingly say them, and they falteringly put them into practice. No, the people don't always understand each other, but there is somewhere there always the trying to understand, and the trying to say, you are man, together we build our land. Land created in common, dreams nourished in common. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. If the house is not yet finished, don't be discouraged, builder. If the fight is not yet won, don't be weary, soldier. The plan and pattern is here. It's woven from the beginning into the warp and the woof of America. All men are created equally. No man is good enough to govern without another's consent. It is better to die free than to live as slaves. Who said these things? Who owns those words? You and me. And to the enemy who would conquer us from without, we say no. And to the enemy who would divide and conquer us from within, we say hell no, man. Freedom, brotherhood, democracy. And to all the enemies of these great words, we say no. It was a long time ago, but not so long ago, that an enslaved people heading toward freedom made up a song. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. That plow has plowed a new furrow across the field of history. And into this furrow, the freedom seed has been dropped. And from this seed, a tree grew. It is growing, and it'll forever grow. And that tree is for everybody. For all America and for all the world. May its branches spread and its shelter grow until all races and all people know its shade. Keep your head